Welcome to PM and PDM work order generation in AssetWise Ivara Performance Management. By the end of this unit, you'll understand how to use and create PM generation profiles for regular interval and shutdown work, how to manually generate PM and PDM work orders, and how to set up the Generate PM work orders scheduled action. PM generation is the process of automatically creating preventive maintenance, PM, and predictive maintenance, PDM, work orders in bundles. There are two main scenarios: regular PM/PDM work orders, those that occur during regular operations, which includes non-deviating shutdowns such as weekly and monthly shutdowns, and shutdown PDM and PM work orders, those that occur during major outages where the time frame and the start and end dates are somewhat irregular, such as summer shutdowns, retooling shutdowns, etc. This is not to say that these outages do not occur at a set frequency, but the dates and content of these shutdowns may vary. PM and PDM work orders can be triggered and generated automatically at a set interval. We need 5 things in APM for this to happen. Standard task with planning information. This provides the work order details. Standard job with set triggers. This determines how often and under what rules a work order is generated. Scheduled action to update the trigger status, which is a background action which updates the triggering status on all standard jobs at a set frequency. PM generation profile, which is a set of criteria that determine what bundle of standard jobs will be triggered, and a scheduled action to generate PM work orders, which again is another background action that runs at a set interval and pattern that will automatically generate the work orders for each bundle of standard jobs. All 5 of these things must exist for work orders to generate automatically. The PM generation profile is the object where we set the criteria for the work orders to be generated based on PDM and PDM or condition-based standard tasks. PM profiles can be created at the site level or for a particular branch of the hierarchy. The criteria we can use to determine what work is generated using the profile is asset type, maintenance group, work type, or shutdown type. For each profile, we'll also set a frequency and the number of days in advance that the work orders will be due. PM profiles are found at the site, Reliability Programs View, PM tab, and PM Profile subtab. All cyclic work that is to be triggered in APM will need at least one PM generation profile. To best illustrate how this works, we'll discuss 3 different cyclic triggering scenarios. One scenario for all site PM and PDM tasks, another profile for the twice daily operator rounds for a compressor system, and another profile for the annual shutdown mechanical and electrical tasks. Click on the New button in the lower right to create a new profile. The all-site PM and PDM tasks profile is straightforward. First we name the profile, and then we make sure that this profile is used to generate work orders for all assets in the coach site is selected. This profile will be our catch-all profile that is used to trigger all other work not specifically defined in any other profiles. Next we'll set the planning horizon. For this profile, we'll choose 14 days into the future, as this will give us plenty of time to plan and schedule our work. Next we'll click on the Frequency tab. Select the automatically triggered based on a recurrence pattern. Next we'll select by week as our recurrence pattern, and then we'll set the time of the trigger to occur Mondays at 1 a.m. This way, we'll have our work orders ready for when the planners and schedulers come in Monday morning. Next we'll select the Work Types and Classifications tab. Because this is our catch-all trigger, we'll leave the default value to include jobs for all work types. This way we won't miss any triggers. We'll also follow the same philosophy for asset types and the maintenance group. And then we'll click OK, and our profile is complete. Next we'll create the profile for the twice daily operator rounds for the compressor area. Again we'll click on the New button, name our profile, and then we'll select the branch of the hierarchy that we wish to generate work orders for. In this case it'll be the compressor system. So we'll change this profile is used to generate work orders for this asset and its descendants, and then we'll browse for our system. Next we'll select the planning horizon. For this profile, we'll choose 1 day as this will ensure that we don't have too many work orders to clean up at any given time, but this will also ensure that all of the next day's check sheets will be created as needed. Next, we'll click on the Frequency tab. Again, we'll select Automatically Triggered based on a recurrence pattern. Next, we'll select Daily as the frequency and set the time of the trigger to occur at each day at 1 a.m. This way, we'll have all of our work orders ready for the next shift. Note: some operations may not require operational checks on certain days of the week, say on a regular maintenance day. You can deselect any days where you do not wish the trigger to occur. On the Maintenance Group tab, we'll select Include Standard Jobs for the selected maintenance groups only. And then we'll choose our Operations Maintenance Group, as we only wish to generate work orders that go to the operators. On the Work Types and Classifications tab, we'll select Include Jobs for the selected types only. And then we'll choose Preventive Maintenance and On-Condition Maintenance, as these are the only work order types used by the operations personnel. Next, we'll click OK, and our profile is completed. Often there is confusion here, as operators may not work with work orders at this company. In APM, the work order for operators is essentially just a shell that APM uses to help in managing the resulting check sheet. This operations work order will only exist in the confines of the APM product and will be set to close automatically when the check sheet is completed. Lastly, let's create the profile for the annual shutdown mechanical and electrical tasks. Here we'll leave the default selection to generate work orders for all assets on the site. But should there be several different independent areas with different shutdown schedules, you can break this up into several different profiles for the different areas later. Next, we'll change the option to the profile is used to generate work orders for a shutdown. This will allow us to select the shutdown type we wish to generate the work for and the number of days in the future the shutdown is planned to occur. Shutdowns often follow a critical path and require significant lead times to plan, procure, and schedule. We'll follow the same philosophy here as well and select 182 days as our lead time. On the Frequency tab, we now have a choice to make. We can choose to automatically generate shutdown work orders and select by year for the recurrence and select recurrence to say first Monday of January. This will generate all the work orders due the next annual shutdown on the first Monday in January, but set their planned start dates to 182 days into the future, because that was the horizon that we used on the General tab. The other choice is to set the triggering method to manually triggered, whereby the shutdown planner manually runs the job to generate the work orders once the date of the shutdown is determined. This is often done in organizations that have floating shutdown dates that are generally not determined until later in the year. We'll show how this is done in just a moment. For now, let's just complete our PM profile. On the Maintenance Group tab, we'll select Standard Jobs for the selected maintenance groups only, and then we'll choose Mechanical and Electrical Maintenance Groups. Next, we'll move to the Work Types and Classifications tab. Here we'll select Preventive, On Condition, and Project as our work types. And let's click OK, and our profile is complete. Recall that we need 5 things in APM for automatic generation to happen. We need the standard task, the standard job with set triggers, the scheduled action to update the trigger status, the PM generation profile, and the scheduled action to generate PM work orders. Now that we have our PM profile set up and our standard tasks and standard jobs are built, we still need to establish our scheduled actions to complete the loop. Scheduled actions are background actions that run services in Windows. They can be used to run functionality in APM without need of a human to push a button. To create a new scheduled action, go to the Enterprise level, Services View, and Scheduled Actions tab, and then we'll click on the New button in the lower right. The first scheduled action required is the Update Trigger Status scheduled action. This action reviews all standard job triggers and updates their triggering status based on their set triggering rules and the status of the most recent work order related to the standard job. If the statuses are not up to date, the work order generation task will not generate the work orders at the appropriate time. In the Scheduled Action dialog, select Update Trigger Status as the action to schedule. And then choose a service provider. This has the phrase Action Scheduler in the name. Next, make sure Schedule for all sites is selected. Next, update the frequency on the scheduled action. This should be at least the same frequency as the shortest triggering frequency of all of your standard jobs. Click OK to complete the Update Trigger Status scheduled action. Now that our PM profiles are created and the triggers are updating, the software will know what work orders to generate when the PM work orders generation is triggered. But we still need to trigger the PM work order generation event. This is done with the Generate PM Work Order scheduled action. This event runs in the background as a Windows service. When it runs, it reviews the list of PM profiles and determines all the standard jobs that meet the PM profiles criteria at a set frequency. If the triggering status of the standard job shows that it is due to be triggered before the next time the Generate PM work orders is scheduled to run, the work orders are created. Planned start dates on the newly created work orders are set based on the PM profile and the standard job triggering rules. To create the Generate PM work order scheduled action, click on the New button in the lower right of the Scheduled Actions tab. In the dialog that opens, select Generate PM Work Orders and the service provider, and next change the sites affected to only scheduled for the site and select the appropriate site. Unlike the Update Trigger Status event, PM Generation event is typically set on a site-by-site basis. The event can be resource intensive, and it helps to break up the workload. Next, change the frequency to daily and change the time again to 1 a.m. and then click OK, and our scheduled action is completed. To manually trigger work order generation for those PM profiles set to be manually triggered, return to the Reliability Program view, PM tab, PM Profile tab. Highlight the profile, right-click, and select Generate Work Orders. Once this is clicked, a dialog opens. Here we'll enter the shutdown start date. And then click on Generate Now when we're ready. APM will check the triggering status on all of the standard jobs that meet the criteria defined in the profile. All standard jobs that meet the criteria and are due will then be used to generate work orders. This can be a fairly time-consuming process, so we won't invoke it now, but you can also use this technique for automatically triggered PM profiles. So we'll cancel out of here, highlight one of the automatic generation profiles, and then we'll right-click and again choose Generate Work Orders. The reason we do this sometimes is when an unscheduled outage occurs near to a planned outage date. And next you can leave the default selection, which will generate all the work orders before the next planned trigger. You can also change the horizon to a date further into the future, which will generate all work coming due up to that date. This is sometimes done in order to accommodate planners and schedulers who may have to plan and schedule tasks before going on a holiday. To do this, click on the Use Generation options and filtering values entered here, and then override the horizon date, and then click on Generate Now. Note, manual generation of work orders can be time-consuming, system-intensive, and sometimes leads to selective generation of work. For these reasons, Bentley recommends that work orders be generated using the automatic triggering scheduled to occur during a time of day when few users and processes are likely to be required, such as a Sunday evening at 1 a.m. By completing this unit, you know how to use and create PM generation profiles for regular interval and shutdown work. You know how to manually generate PM and PDM work orders, and you know how to set up Generate PM Work Orders and the Update Trigger Status scheduled actions. Thank you for watching this video. For more information on PM generation, please review the online help section for defining PM generation profiles found in the Asset Reliability Program section.